There are reports of a franchise tag that's going to be used on who? What does it mean? I'll tell you all in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Joining me, Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. It's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. And we remind you that we are free on all platforms. Wherever you get your podcast, you got us. You ain't got to pay for it. And make sure you check out the YouTube. You don't have to pay for that either. The Locked On Jaguars YouTube page is alive and kicking. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. I know I got some new listeners out there. What is happening? And welcome in to this party that we do every day here on Locked On Jaguars. Sit down, take your shoes off, relax your feet, and you make yourself at home. All right, we're talking about info that comes out of the combine about the franchise tag. To tell you who the Jaguars have been reportedly attached to using that tag on, what it means for him, what it means for them, what it means for everybody. And then in segment 3, I'll get rid of some myths for you. Things that it seems like we tell folks every year, but doesn't really matter. Folks continue to believe. I'll give you a hint. Being worried about the salary cap. Why? They're just going to extend people or make cuts and make them June 1st designations and do all of those type things. If teams want to spend money on people, they can do it. But that's not the myth that I'm busting. This is about who teams are meeting with, and we'll get to that sooner than later. All right, so Evan Engram, tight end Evan Engram. There's rumors that the Jaguars will use the franchise tag on Evan Engram. That means if a deal is not worked out prior to the start of free agency, they only have one franchise tag to use, so that means one cannot be used on Juwaan Taylor. If they don't work a deal out with Juwaan Taylor, he will enter free agency and will, without a doubt, become the most sought after right tackle, maybe offensive lineman, period, in this free agency cycle, which is what I told you would happen. So we'll dissect that, and we'll try to plug in some of the things that we've said in the past to help it all make sense. First of all, am I surprised that the Jaguars, or that if the reports are true, that, and I'm going to credit NFL Network, they said somebody else, I think they said it was Tom Pelissero, but I'm going to credit, this is where I saw this news from, so I'm going to give you the NFL Network. Now, my biggest question is it a surprise? No, it's not a surprise for me. I am not shocked in any way that this is what occurred, because the bottom line is they had to use it on one of them if they weren't going to get a deal done. And the reason why they had to get this done right now is because they've already showed you that they're keeping the band together. They're going to run this thing back. They ain't going to leave no mystery about what the playlist is at the concert. You know exactly what it is, and they have to make that happen. Also, I felt that if they franchised anyone, this is who it would be, because, well, that tag number is pretty much around the number that you think the salary or the average per year will be at. Although if they reach a long-term deal, that tag number goes down immensely because of the bonus situation and the amortization of that bonus, and the ability of a team to give a small first-year salary is because they actually stuck a bunch of bonus cash in the guy's pocket, right? So here is the deal. How does it affect the Jacksonville Jaguars? They tag Evan Engram. That means that Juwaan Taylor is going to hit the market. Juwaan Taylor hits the market. somebody's going to offer him way more money than the Jaguars are willing to pay. It doesn't mean the Jaguars are cheap. Doesn't mean the Jaguars can't find room. It doesn't even mean that the Jaguars think Juwaan Taylor is being overpaid. How could a team think that somebody's being overpaid when they gave Christian Kirk the contract they gave him last year, right? And Juwaan Taylor was their best lineman last year. It is just that they have the luxury of a little bit of, okay, we ain't going to go that far. And that luxury is they have a first round pick at the end of the draft, at the end of the fourth quadrant of the draft, at picking at 24. They also have Walker Little, who has played a lot, and they figure that they have a guy who is, at least, while he might not be as good as Juwaan Taylor, maybe he was good enough to be in a competition with Juwaan Taylor last year. So more coaching, they have their finger on the pulse of the franchise more than anybody, because they see these guys every single day. They know what the trajectory is for Walker Little, and maybe that gets pushed up a little bit. But wherever he is and whatever he is, he's worth them not having to break the bank on Juwaan Taylor. Now, with all things being considered, they would want Juwaan Taylor back, even though they have Walker Little, because that gives them the flexibility. And this is what good football teams do. Good football teams have a good third swing offensive tackle. That's just what it is. And it doesn't mean that they won't go out and address the offensive tackle position again in this year's draft, because I absolutely think they will. I think if they allow Juwaan Taylor to go, and that leaves them with Walker Little and Cam Robinson, who's coming off of an injury, I do see them addressing left tackle within the first 100 picks. I see him doing it in the first 3 rounds, because it's going to give them a player that at least has a high enough talent level where he's a little bit ready to go and he can be a fill-in this year. I don't think they're going to wait. And if they do anything, they'll tap into the secondary free agent market and go get a veteran for $5-6 million or whatever. A really good veteran with a name that you know that wants to be on a team that's up and coming and they're headed towards the playoffs. I don't think they're going to get a cheaper option. I think they might get one of those older or aging players who, it won't be Taylor Lewan because he doesn't want to play here. And then I think Taylor still thinks he can play. But there are the names on the list, the guys that you see, those types every single year, and they're going to be available this year. So I think that's the direction that they go. But either this year or next year, they're going to have to address that left tackle position again and put themselves right back in the same situation that they're in this year. That when one of the other guys, in this case Cam Robinson or Walker Little, become a free agent, they'll have an answer that they don't necessarily have to getting a bidding war with one of their own players. I'm going to get into this a little bit more and tell you the ramifications of the positive and the negative ramifications of Evan Engram possibly getting the franchise tag. We'll do all of that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars, after I let you know that today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. Words that I have been dying to say, but the deal is signed, and I can tell you right now that since the midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. How about that? Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Man, I'm telling you, Kevin Durant looked great in Phoenix. So far in his first game, Easy Money Sniper got 24 points, and it's just what he does. FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked on. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And we welcome you to segment 2 of Locked On Jaguars. I am your host, Tony Wiggins, and this is your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. We thank you for joining us and making us your first listen because it's your team every day. All right, what are the positive and negative ramifications of the franchise tag being placed on Evan Engram? The positive is that guarantees that Evan Engram, one of the best tight ends in the league last year, will be a Jacksonville Jaguar again this year. But under, who knows what circumstance. They can work out a long-term deal. They do have a while where they can work a deal out with someone who is under the franchise tag. There's a point, though, where that deadline comes and that threshold says that if you don't work a deal out with him, he has to play under that tag for $11 million, which probably ain't going to be a problem. But then you'll be going through the same thing next year. The other alternative is get a deal done, right? Get a long-term deal done. I think it's about $10 million per year. You can structure it where he gets a lot of bonus money, stretch that thing out to 3 or 4 years, and take that bonus money and amortize it out and spread it through the life of the contract, give him a pretty low first-year salary, which would allow you to have the room to maybe sign Juwaan Taylor, right? Or Arden Key or whoever it is you're going for. But to that end, they do have some options and alternatives. As far as Taylor, I think this gives him even more leverage. What I mean by that is he knows they can't tag him if they use it on Engram. He knows he's going into the market. If he gets a higher offer, he may not take it. He may come back to the Jags and say, you know what? I factor in no state taxes, and then I factor in the fact that this is where I want to be. $14 million in Jacksonville looks like $16 million in New York or Chicago. So I'll just stay here in Jacksonville. Like the weather, like the team, like where we are as a franchise. So why not? So all of those things are possibilities, but I think this does give more leverage to Juwaan Taylor. It gives him more flexibility as to what he wants to do because now he absolutely knows that regardless of what Jacksonville offers, he is going to get PIZAID. That's paid for all of y'all that don't really know what PIZAID means. But he's going to get his money and he deserves it. Rumor has it from the combine that the second that he hits the market, he's going to be sought after. People are going to compensate him. And his agent is probably telling him the exact same thing that folks are talking about. In fact, I guarantee you right now, I know there's a tampering rule or whatever. Yeah, his agent knows exactly what's going to be on the table. They know who's going to do it. And this goes back to something that I said in the past. These are the kind of guys you want to keep if you're a Jacksonville Jaguar, right? I'm going to just go out on a limb and I'm going to tell you right now, I took a deep sigh. If I'm going to be left in a position where I need to still go out and find a swing tackle, Trevor Lawrence is too important for me. And unless I really, really am that confident in Walker Little, I trade Walker Little before I let Juwaan Taylor go. I promise you. You don't. If you're going to work a deal, with Juwaan Taylor, there's no need to trade Walker. There's no need to trade Walker Little because the bottom line is he's under a rookie deal. So there's no need to do that. Except if you trade Walker Little, you get massive compensation. I'm sitting there wondering if they could get a late first round pick. I know they could get an early second round pick. So the question is, what would you rather have? Would you rather have Juwaan Taylor at $18.5, $19 million a year, which per year doesn't really matter like that? We've discussed that in the past. What really matters is guaranteed money and cash up front. Would you rather have him and let's just say pick 36 or something like that, or which gives you a chance to get another player at another need position, and then you can double back in the third round and get a third or fourth round and get a swing tackle, or you can still go the veteran route. You won't get a $6 or $7 million veteran. You might get a $3 or $4 million veteran, but still, your starters will be those two football players. Like if somebody else is willing to give your guy $18 to $20 million, shouldn't you be willing to do it under the right circumstances? So while I don't think it's smart to trade Walker Little, even if you sign Juwaan Taylor, Walker Little really wants to be a starter, and you don't see that there's a clear path to him doing that before he's a free agent, because you know where Cam Robinson is and whether or not you think Walker Little is better than Cam Robinson right now. At least be incentivized to making that deal. Go ahead and trade him and get another starter at another position. Oh, I don't know, something like an edge rusher, another tight end, that slot that everybody keeps talking about so much that they need. You don't just do it just to do it, but these are the options that you have. Or here's the alternative. Let Walker Little go. Let Juwaan Taylor go, place Walker Little into that spot, and then do what I said. Go get your veteran or use a draft pick on another guy. Which one of those, in your opinion, protects Trevor Lawrence the most? And I don't want to hear anything about cost, because protecting Trevor Lawrence is the priority. So whatever it costs, you do it. Correct? All right. But if I'm Juwaan Taylor, I do not take a discount for anything. And the scenario about the taxes and living in Florida as opposed to New York, Chicago, or LA, or though that's not taking a lesser deal. That's just understanding and realize exactly what the deal is. I'll tell you more about it here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, third and final segment, Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen, because it's your team every day. I wouldn't let Juwaan Taylor go. I'd find a way to get him signed. However, if they're going to really, really press and push the issue for Juwaan Taylor as a right tackle to get $25 million a year, and somebody throw him $40 million in cash up front and $68 million guarantee. Okay, at some point, yeah, there's a time and a place where you bow out. I get it. Something else that I promised you at the top of the show that I talk about are team visits and interviews at the combine. And I'm going to go ahead and extend that to team visits and player visits in the top 30 or the 30 visits. I wouldn't call it a top 30, the 30 visits, or making too much out of somebody watching somebody work out, or what pro days they go to, or who are they paying attention to. Let me explain something to you. This period is the eval period, right? Coaches, scouts, GMs, they do evaluations. That's their job. If their job wasn't to just do evaluations and it was just to worry about need, then they'd all have a board where it's just a need board, and they wouldn't have an overall board at all. You eval guys because, one, somebody who's super talented at a position that you don't necessarily have a need might fall to you, and you need to have a book on it. Two, you need to know and you need to have that a value placed on that player. If you have a value placed on the player, when you start moving back and forth and working out deals and knowing who a team may want or who the target is for a potential trade up or down, you need to know who that player might be so you know how much to ask for. All right? Let's just say the Jaguars were picking in the top 5. I would look at every single one of those quarterbacks, not because I need one, but I'm going to see what all the fuss is about. So if you want him, I know what you're looking for, and I know what you got, and I know what he is. Okay? You want him, you're going to have to give me what it takes to come up here and get him, Jack. Here's the other part of it. there's a rotation of coaches, GMs, scouts, personnel people that happens every single year. You may be coaching or be a personnel person in charge of one of those said people in a short period of time. Could be next year. The other thing is those players become free agents in 4 or 5 years. And if you're a coach, GM, or personnel person, you already have a book on that player. That's the way that this goes. If you're not evaling right now, then what are you doing? This is the eval period. This is part of your job. You're supposed to be there looking at players. You ain't got nothing else to do. I think we go through this every single year. And I tell the story that Mo Williams, who's the team chaplain right now, told me. He got picked in the second round by the Jaguars. They didn't interview him at the combine. They didn't come to his personal workout. And they were hoping nobody else noticed, or they were hoping not to show that they were extremely interested in him by acting like they weren't interested in him at all. He was shocked they picked him. Go back through the years and look at the players that visited and who they paid so much attention to at the combine, and then you'll realize they're just doing their job. These people are going to select folks you had no idea they were thinking about at all. It happens every single year. It happened with Tyson Campbell. It happened with Walker Little, who we've been talking about today. It happened with Andre Cisco. Nobody knew they were going to pick those people. Nobody knew they were going to trade up and get Devin Lloyd. Nobody knew they were thinking about Luke Fortner and then getting Chad Muma. So every single year, there are no tells and you can't tell, you don't know. And if you can't tell and don't know, guess who's doing their job? The guys who don't allow you to tell and know. So a lot of people on social media are making a lot of media guys are making a lot of noise about who and what these teams are looking at. I don't report on that stuff. You know why? Because it don't mean a hill of beans. It's all smoke and mirrors right now. They're just doing their job. And I'm doing my job by inviting you to come back to Locked On Jaguars every single day and make us your first listen, because it's your team every day. Y'all take care of each other. I'm going to try to catch somebody at the combine to have them on this week. If not, we'll have them on next week because everybody's busy and all of these wild stories keep coming up and guys are sitting in places where they didn't realize they'd have to be sitting because of arrest warrants and all of this stuff. But just rest assured that we're going to take care of you just like you take care of us. Till next time, see you later.